and true with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Let's do it one more time. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. You're welcome.
As we come almost to an end, I want us to just go at the proposed new directions of this monitoring ministry that we are having. One of the things that, as we looked at the monitoring ministry, we want it to have a research foundation. It is important for us that as we speak about an issue, that we speak it through a really empirical way and not just by perceptions. So part of the task has been for us to create this research arm for the General Commission on Religion and Race. So I oversee the research work of the General Commission on Religion and Race, and jointly with me, one of my staff members, Mary Phillips, who is another research worker, who will be working jointly in how we create our research efforts to make our monitoring ministry one that will assist us. And based on the research, we will be able to create the tools that are necessary and also create the annual conference reviews to be a new way of entering conversation about how do we move annual conferences into this inclusiveness journey. The proposed baseline indicators, as we call them, will be 5 that we have narrowed down and that we are thinking that are the ones that we want to focus for the next 2 years. One is membership and representation. The second one is leadership. The third is policies, processes, and practices. 4th is budget and finance, and 5 is program priorities. And I briefly will give you what is the vision, why of these indicators. So why are we going to monitor these areas? Membership and representation. The vision is to work toward a denomination where leaders are able to lead a diverse denomination and that the membership reflect ever more fully the diversity of God's world and God's human family with whom we minister. And so we want to monitor the continued makeup of the church. Looking at our membership, how is it changing? How is as we look at demographics of this country, by 2050, this country is going to be a whole different face to what the church used to think about ministry. And so how does the church reflect the world? How does it reflect the society that we are called to transform? And so we want to monitor that, as well as we continue to do the monitoring of representation. And one of the ways is, how do we monitor the new racial, ethnic, new church starts? As the denomination has a commitment of starting 1,000 new churches, how are we going to see that, how are we being inclusive of opening and starting new churches that are racial ethnics? And where are they being started? That is part of our ministry as we monitor the entire church. This next indicator is leadership. And the vision is to equip United Methodist leadership to effectively foster and guide an increasingly diverse denomination, and that women and people of color and people from outside of the United States, that's a key, are recruited, nurtured, supported, encouraged, valued, and whose perspectives, cultures, and experience and theological perspectives inform and are embraced by the entire church. And this is, how do we also monitor who are the guiding forces of the church? When we come to, leadership, who sits around our tables in the general church? Who is guiding the direction? And how those decisions are impacting not only us here in the United States, but us as a global church. One of the questions that you might wonder is, or we want to monitor is, what percentage of candidates by local churches complete the ordination process versus those candidates who are racial ethnic? Do they complete the ordination process? How are we continuing to nurture our upcoming leaders to become with a mindset of diversity. So those are the second indicator. The third one is policies, processes, and practices. And this is to create and expand policies and practices and ministry plans and procedures in the denomination structure that build and strengthen the full inclusion, participation, and effectiveness of women, people of color, members, and ministry partners beyond the United States. One of the things, if you noticed, we are trying to be intentional of keeping in mind that we are a global church, that we need to care for our brothers and sisters who are in the central conferences, and that they are as vital, integral part of the body of Christ as the United Methodist Church. So as we look at our policies and processes and practices, how do we put in place if our policies are being exclusive of people? For example, religious visas. When we think about bringing clergy, our policies and our conferences allowing us to bring clergy from other places and sponsoring them through a religious visa program. Or the Board of Ordained Ministries practices and processes of how they care and nurture candidates through the process is one that's being effective. Another one is cross-racial, cross-cultural appointments. It has been the practice of the church, but is the process or the policy in place for cross-racial, cross-cultural appointments effective? And so how do we care and monitor this way of working? So that is one of the tasks that really we as a commission are working is on cross-racial, cross-cultural appointments. As you will hear, there is on the table a save a date card because we will be hosting the first cross-racial, cross-cultural convocation in April of 2011 in Los Angeles as we come together and address this cross-racial, cross-cultural appointment system. And we started the work this week. I just had the first 2 focus group with pastors around the nation to address cross-racial, cross-cultural appointments and their experiences. And next week, I'll be talking to denominational leaders and local churches in focus groups just to get a sense of how and where we are as we move forward to be a church that's diverse. Because if we're honest, most of us who are in ministry, one day as the demographics change, we will think of our church to be a multicultural place. So we will be in place of a cross-racial or cross-cultural appointment. So how do we prepare ourselves to be effective as a church? Budget and finance. This is the hard one, right? But we need to, as we monitor the entire church, that to assure that the church funds and other resources are used to expand the full participation and the empowerment of all God's people through ministries of justice, advocacy, positive change, and ministries of mercy and charity, and to invite diverse voices and experiences in the full and equal decision makers around the denomination spending, plans, and patterns and missional priorities. And this is, a big one. But what has been the denomination's actual spending, money spent in support of multicultural, ethnic-specific, or women-specific resources? What has been the actual spending of our denominations on specifically for ethnic and women education? How much have we invested in training our ethnic groups and women? How does our budget, any conference, local church, general church, reflect where our ministry is at? Where is the money being cut from first? Are the justice and advocacy ministries the first ones to be cut? Yeah. So how do we as a church lift up the voice that's where we are called? Wesley was talking about social holiness, and how we have to be a church that is in movement, not only in piety, but also that we have to be social justice advocate. So how do we bring that voice when it comes to the decision? And who sits around that table? Who are the people who are invited to that table to make the decisions? I won't give you the answer to that one now. You could come with your own conclusions, and we could talk about it afterwards. The last one is program ministries. And this indicator has really been a part for us as a General Commission on Religious Race to focus on the 4 priorities that the denomination in 2008 General Conference said that we were going to work on. And it was about leadership development, creating new places by starting new churches and revitalizing existing ones, engaging in ministry with the poor, and stamping the killer disease by improving health globally. Those are the 4 focus areas of the denomination. And so we are trying now to monitor what is happening in those areas. How is the church going to move forward with this? And how do we address these issues that will affect the body of Christ to really move forward to be inclusive in what we do? And it's in response, for example, the studies that are happening. For example, the call to action and the restructuring of the denomination. How it does affect us as a church if we enter the conversation of restructuring our denomination. Who is going to be affected by that restructuring? Or if we look at the ministry study by the General Board of Higher Education Ministry, that they're talking about guarantee appointments and removing the guarantee appointment system. How does that affect the leadership? How does it affect our churches? And so how do we enter into those conversations to bring awareness and to continue to help the church move forward in these conversations of inclusiveness? So these are the 5 indicators, and one of the things I want to give you an update is the monitoring tools. The tools that you have currently been working have been ones that have been very well said. They're a checklist. And so we are now really looking at the indicators, looking through the research, trying to figure out how we can monitor different levels, all these different indicators. But one of our priorities will be the local church. We really want to work with the local church. And the only way that's possible is that each one of us in this room commit ourselves to work with our own local churches, to become the voice of inclusiveness in our local churches. And so we want to work first to create a tool to help us, to how to monitor in our local churches. And later on, we will work on the annual conferences. And General Conference and jurisdictional conferences, which is 2012, will be our last tools to come forward. But this is the direction of the monitoring tools that we foresee. That's why you're the first group to hear about this. We will be having a monitoring national training next February 17 through 19, 2011, in Houston, Texas. Just last week, I was working with a hotel arrangement, and it will be a joint effort with the General Commission of Status and Royal Women, with General Commission on Religion and Race. We'll bring the core chairs and the counselor chairs together. And we'll come together and train on the monitoring tools. And what is the new monitoring ministry that we are pursuing? You got what I call a snapshot of the direction. By February 2011, we will be in a place that you will see the tools and start learning how to work with them. So that is the direction we're going. That is a snapshot of where we are. Are there any questions or reflections? Yes?
That presentation you just made after the break, that is what your objective being hired is to put together, correct?
Correct.
Those same proposals will come to the General Commission board next month?
These indicators have been approved by the board, I believe, last fall.
The General Commission?
I believe. I could check, but I think that's what I received was the work that was done October 2009.
It was accepted when we accepted the new structure?
I believe so, yes.
And we'll come back over that.
Yeah, at lunchtime.
And the focus of that. Thank you.
Any questions? Any reflections? I know I just... In Houston, we are inviting core chairs of our annual conferences to come and join us, and council chairs, and we are also inviting a representative of each caucus as well to come to that meeting. So it'll be chairs from Casbro and core. And if the chair of your conference core cannot attend, then I will invite that you send a representative so that they could be part of that conversation.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm sure you're aware, and I know my own annual conference, North Texas, and there may be others represented here whose annual conferences have recently undergone a restructuring or reorganization. And, we talked about the budget and the justice and advocacy things were the first to go. How is the General Commission going to deal with those, conferences that no longer have, even though the discipline says, but that responsibility has been relegated to a kind of a broader group? How are you going to address that and ensure that representation is at this gathering and anything going forward?
That's when the work of me and him will come into play, as she will be figuring out how do we continue those partnerships where the Conference Commission on Religious Race have been integrated into another group or has joined together with COSRO or what they call racial justice committees. How do we continue to be partnership in them? And so that's part of the work of me. And do you want to address it?
The book of discipline says Conference Commission on Religion and Race or equivalent committee. So we are still related to that. Different name, but same word.
Mm-hmm.
What do you don't have that?
We don't have that. Well, bring it to our attention, and that will be good for conversation.
It's not our conference, it's someone else.
Oh.
I was wondering whether you could include in the chairs that you invite chairs of church and society, which might be also, what I'm trying to do in the Texas Annual Conference is pull these different groups that all have some voice on this issue, and church and society would be one of them, COSRO, CORE, the caucuses, and things like that. So that you might have a church and society chair might be who could come in on that, because that's.
Thank you. We will take that into consideration. That'd be great.
When was this one done? It's quite different from what you.
Yes, that's probably before the new restructuring happened. And that's going to be part of the luncheon conversation. G-Corps, General Commission on Race, had gone through a major restructuring this spring, and so with new focuses. But we are still following the mandates of the discipline, but in a new way. So I appreciate your time, your attention span. I appreciate your willingness to be in this ministry, and I hope that you start thinking, being, and doing the ministry of monitoring. This will be online, and we will get it electronically sent out to you as well, the PowerPoint. Thank you very much.